The Andy Pollin Show on ESPN 630, the sports capital.
This is Orioles Preview on ESPN 630. It is brought to you by Sprinkler Fitters Local 669, saving lives and protecting property for over 100 years. And the preview today is Game 2 of their wild card series against the Kansas City Royals. And I mentioned earlier this hour that the odds are not in their favor. History certainly not in their favor. They started this format in 2022, and of the 8 teams that played in it, we have had all of the Game 1 winners advance, and only once has the series gone to 3 games. It used to be just a 1-game wild card. Now it's a best of 3, and they play all of it in Baltimore. So if the Orioles are to win today, they would play Game 3 tomorrow. But it seems to be a very difficult hill to climb. And you've got the Yankees waiting this weekend. The shame of it for the Orioles is if they don't win the series, if Kansas City wins it, they won't get the chance to play the Yankees, who they've had great success with during the regular season. They won the series, and somehow they have their number. But Kansas City came in as a team that had to battle their way in. Remember, their sweep of the Nationals here last week was huge. That got them in. And they had not been to the playoffs in 9 years. And they come in with a hot pitcher, Cole Reagans, and he basically shut down this lineup. They had runners in scoring position, 5 of them, just couldn't drive them in, which was a big problem throughout the second half of the season for the Orioles. And, you know, here you had an Orioles team that last year emerged. They had 101 wins. They won the division. They hadn't been swept in a series all season long. And then they face the Texas Rangers, and they get swept in 4 games. And so you reset for this year. You talk about how much you learn as a young team, that, you know, maybe you got stale during the time off, and you learned a lot of things, and now you're going to be ready for the postseason. Well, they weren't ready yesterday, and the problems that had plagued them in the second half of the season plagued them again yesterday as they were essentially shut down, losing that game 1-0. And it is going to be difficult today, though. They have Zach Eflin on the mound, and Eflin was a trade deadline pickup from Tampa, and he's been very effective for the Orioles, 5-2 with a 2.60 ERA. They're going to need a good performance out of him, but more importantly, they got to hit. And they got to hit in a timely manner, and they have not been able to do that. And you have, you know, some of the great young stars in the game who are just not performing in the clutch right now. And that's got to be very troubling for this baseball team as they try to stay alive today and force a Game 3 of that series tomorrow. And I remember hearing Jeff Passan a couple of weeks ago, and this would be more about the shame of if it doesn't happen for him this year, where he was asked who did he like for the World Series. And he said there are 12 teams that are going to be in the playoffs this year. And he said any one of the 12 could win. It's totally random what could happen, because we did not have a 100-win team. Even when we've had 100-win teams, going back to 2019 when the Nationals won, knocking off a 106-win team in the Dodgers and a 105-win team in the Astros in the World Series, that didn't mean much once you got to the postseason. And, you know, you talk to people about how do you build a team for the postseason. There really isn't a way to do that. It's just getting hot at the right time, and it's just like the regular season. When a good team can go through a stretch where they can't win a game or can't win a series over the course of, 3 or 4 weeks, and then they get hot and they win a bunch of series. And that's really the key as to what happens in the postseason. So, you know, if there's a silver lining in this, and I don't know if there really is when you leave runners on base, as was a problem in the late part of the season. Remember where the Nationals were in 2019. And remember, they're trailing the Brewers with Josh Hader, who was there at the time, and the best closer in baseball. And he's in to close the game in the 8th inning. And Juan Soto gets a hit. It looks like a routine single, but it's misplayed in the outfield by Trent Grisham. 3 runs come across the plate. Nationals take the lead, and they move on, and then they're hot at the right time. They battle past the Dodgers. They sweep the Cardinals, and then they get to the World Series, and they take care of business, winning on the road against the Astros, which was a huge key in all of that, and the fact that they were able to get some heroic performances. I mean, it probably ended Steven Strasburg's career, but he was the MVP of the series and won it all. We got Ben McDonald. Great. You've watched and heard Ben McDonald all year long on the Masson broadcast, and you saw him yesterday with Sean McDonough and Jessica Mendoza doing the game on ESPN. And excuse my ignorance here, Ben, was that your first assignment for ESPN, or have you done other games with them?
Pro games, that was my first TV game. I've done some radio stuff with ESPN in the playoffs, but as far as playoff baseball goes, first assignment. So, yeah, that was fun. It was a lot of fun. Obviously, I've worked with ESPN for parts of 20 years now, doing the college game and the College World Series and stuff like that. But first major league experience, so it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, and it's a difference, too. It's an Oriole game, but it's not the type of Oriole game that you're used to doing because you're doing it for a national audience. What was your approach? How did it change doing it on national TV?
Well, I mean, it's just, it's kind of like you do college games. Or, I did an ESPN game earlier in the year where I did the Rangers and the Red Sox, and it's just it's a 50-50 approach, and my job is to be honest and break down the game any way I see it. And obviously I spend a lot of time with the Orioles. That's not a secret. I do, nearly 90 games a year, and it is what it is. So it helps me on prep work because obviously I know the Orioles really well, and now I just got to kind of, buff up on the Royals. And, of course, the Orioles hadn't played the Royals, since early April, as everybody knows. Played 2 series against them in early April. And so it's been a while, so I had to kind of catch up on the Royals a little bit. But what an exciting team they are, and it was a really good game yesterday, and I expect today to be very similar.
Yeah, I mean, pitching was you're a great pitcher with the Orioles for 7 years and pitched with the Brewers for a couple of years. Pitching, and you watch a pitcher's duel like that. What's the difference? And I know you never got the opportunity to play in a postseason game, but what's the difference in a pitcher's battle like that in the postseason versus the regular season?
I think one is controlling your emotion. You have a lot at stake, and you know that. And big games are very similar to opening day, and first playoff games always the one that's a little bit, can get a little bit sideways on you as a pitcher. You try to do too much too early, but I thought Cole Reagans was dominant yesterday for a guy. His first year as a full-time starter, has actually had a phenomenal year. And obviously Corbin Burns, one of the best pitchers in baseball over the last 4 years. They both shined yesterday. And that's what you hope you get. I mean, when you go to the first round of the playoffs and you get to game one, you expect to have 2 dudes on the mound. And in this game yesterday, we had 2 real dudes on the mound that went out there and shined and, pitched their tails off yesterday. So if you like pitching, that was the ball game for you.
Yeah, and as the game goes on like that, I guess your hands get a little tighter around the bat, right? And as a pitcher, do you sense that? And do you pitch any differently than you would earlier in the game, knowing that, it's getting late and you got to produce in a game like that?
Well, I don't know. I mean, sometimes you can feed off a hitter's aggression. Mm-hmm. Sometimes you kind of feel that as a pitcher and where you are, but I mean, look, both these teams know what's at stake, and once these 2 pitchers got past the first inning, I thought they were going to roll for a little bit. And I tell you what, we saw some big-time stuff. I mean, you talked about Reagans, who's up to 98, and he just kept throwing that fastball on the inside part of the plate, and the Orioles had a lot of trouble adjusting to it. We talked about his changeup. He's got the second-best swing and miss pitch in all of baseball at 48% with that. He threw some really good changeups after working the ball on the inside part of the plate. And for Corbin Burns, it was more of the same for Corbin Burns. And we knew all about the month of August, right? It was probably his worst month of his career. He pitched to an ERA above 7, but boy, when September rolled around, he grabbed a different gear. And I think his last 6 starts leading into this, I think he was a 1.2 ERA over his last, and he'll be the number 1 free agent pitcher out there this year. There's no doubt about it. Corbin Burns is going to make a lot of money this offseason.
Yeah, he was asked, do you think that's your last appearance in an Orioles uniform? He says, I'm not thinking about that now, which is the right thing to say. We're talking to Ben McDonald, part of the Orioles telecast throughout the season on Masson, now doing postseason work with ESPN, and we'll be out there again today as they play Game 2 of that series, and we'll have it for you here starting at 4:30. The Orioles, by and large, are pretty healthy now. You got Westberg back, you got Mountcastle back, and the problems remain of not producing with runners in scoring position. Once again, they left 5 on base yesterday. What do you see as the issue right now with that?
Well, I mean, it's strange, and I told people instead of the broadcast yesterday, the Orioles have struggled the second half of the season, hitting with runners in scoring position, situational hitting. They were the number 1 team in baseball, runners in scoring position last year. It has not been the same. this year. But I was encouraged the way the Orioles finished the regular season. They finished the regular season, winning 5 of 6, won 2 of 3 against the Yankees in New York, went to Minnesota, swept them the final 3 games of the season. And runners in scoring position was really good. Like they hit, I think, 357 combined over those last 2 series. They had 20 base hits with runners in scoring position, which was they only had 17 hits with runners in scoring position the previous 5 series combined. So I felt like the Orioles were really trending in the right direction with the runners in scoring position thing. Obviously, it didn't work out yesterday. We only 1 for 7 runners in scoring position. But for me, look, it was more than that for the Orioles. I look at this as a wasted opportunities. I'll take you back to the 3rd inning. Cedric Mullins leads off with a double. So you got a guy at second base and nobody out, and yet the Orioles can't move him. It's strikeout, fly ball, and no production there. And then I'll roll you to the 5th inning, which to me was the big inning. You get Ramon Urias out at second base with just 1 out after a double, and Cedric Mullins hits the ball out to center field. Now, it wasn't an easy read for Urias, but he thought the ball was going to get caught, and so he kind of hesitated a little bit at second base. The ball falls in. He doesn't score. That could have been a 1-run for the game, but still you had a 1st and 3rd 1-out situation, and you don't need a base hit to score a run, right? A sacrifice fly works the same,
right?
And then Cole Reagan's grabbed a different gear. He strikes out McCann. He strikes out Henderson. So it was some opportunities in there where you don't need base hits, just moving guys over, the situational hitting kind of thing that you got to do well in the playoffs to win. And sometimes, when you get to the playoff ball, it's about the small things. Everybody knows about the big things, but it's about small things. And I didn't think the Orioles did the small things very well yesterday offensively.
Okay, and today you got Zach Eflin going, a trade deadline pickup who pitched very well for the Orioles down the stretch, 5-2 with a 2.60 ERA. You've seen him throw. What have you seen, and why should Oriole fans be optimistic with him on the mound today?
Well, one thing about Zach Eflin, typically, he is a strike thrower. I think on the season, 134 walks, 134 strikeouts, 24 walks. He had a rough time his last time out. He had a career-high 5 walks his last time out against the Yankees, and that is not like him at all. Like, the mechanics were off just a little bit. But I will say this, his 9 starts, you mentioned it with the Orioles, he's given up 3 earned runs or less in all 9 of them. 7 of the 9 have been quality starts. He chews up innings. He's a guy that's got some postseason experience, obviously, and so he's been there before. And so he's just a strike thrower. He's not going to overwhelm with velocity. You're not going to see a big fastball, and you're not going to see that from Lugo either. It's for 2 guys that really know how to pitch. They know how to move the ball in and out and up and down and throw a lot of different pitches. And so I think he's going to go out and compete. We know the Royals don't strike out much, right? And so you're not going to strike them out. They're the 2nd hardest team in baseball to strike out. So if Eflin's on his game, he's going to have that sticking fastball going, a good changeup, a couple of breaking balls. He'll create a lot of ground balls, a lot like Lugo will.
All right, last thing, we're talking to Ben McDonald. This is, as you know, a do-or-die situation. So, if there's struggles early on, you go to the bullpen, and you may be going to starting pitchers. And we've seen this an awful lot in the postseason, that teams rely on, even when you get to like a World Series, like 3 pitchers basically the whole way. If you're a starter and you haven't relieved all year, you got to be ready, right, in the bullpen, that you can get called at any time?
Oh, yeah. Brady Singer with the Royals is a perfect example of that. He's pretty much been a starter all year long, and he's in the bullpen right now, and they could use him in some leverage situations against right-handers. Yeah, and so that's difficult. I think if you're the Orioles right now, though, I think to keep this game close, you're going to see the leverage relievers come in. You're going to see Cionel Perez and Cano and Sir Anthony and Danny Coulombe and guys like that. I think Gregory Soto, who's been really good. And so I think that's what the Orioles are going to do, because it's win or go home now, right? It's all hands on deck. You'll worry about tomorrow when tomorrow gets you. You got to find a way to win today. But it's going to begin with Zach Eflin. And, if you're an Oriole fan, you got to hope he goes out there and gives you 6 strong innings, maybe gives up a run or 2 and keeps you right in the ball game. Then you try to win it with your relievers and some late offense.
Very good. Ben, keep up the good work. It's always good to talk to you.
You too. Take care. Thank you.
That's Ben McDonald, who, again, if you watch this yesterday, he was great. In a pitcher's duel like that, his insight is tremendous, and he knows the Orioles as well as anybody, as he says, doing 90 games a year for years. Coming up, we'll get some reaction from the clubhouse. Brandon Hyde, Gunnar Henderson, Ryan O'Hearn, Corbin Burns. Stay with us. It's Orioles Preview on ESPN 630.
The Andy Pollin Show on ESPN 630, the sports capital.
This is Orioles Preview, brought to you by Sprinkler Fitters Local 669, saving lives and protecting property for over 100 years. Orioles Game 2 of their best-of-3 series against the Royals after losing 1-0 yesterday, and The problems of the second half of the season popped up again yesterday. They did get 5 hits, same as the Royals, but they left 7 runners on base, 5 in scoring position, and it's put them in this spot where, as Brandon Hyde says, it's do or die. They get it.
I think everybody understands the position we're in, and we need to win tomorrow. I don't think that's it's a team meeting rallying cry. I think everybody fully understands what the situation is.
And I think team meetings are overrated. If it works, you say, hey, we all met and we got on the same page. And if you have the team meeting and you lose, it's meaningless. But the runners in scoring position is a problem, and that's something that Hyde addressed as well.
Yeah, we didn't have many opportunities, but because Reagan's was really good, and then the bullpen guys did a nice job. Well, we had a couple punch outs there, first and third, that hurt. It's you gotta give them credit. I thought the pitchers were absolutely fantastic, and Reagan's is really hard to hit, and the bullpen guys that came in after made it really tough on us.
Last year, you guys lost game 1 in a really close fashion, and then it kind of snowballed from there. Is there anything you guys can do or you can do to prevent that from happening again, even in an even shorter
No, we got to turn the page, and our backs up are up against the wall, and we got to play well tomorrow.
Yeah. Now Hyde doesn't usually bristle at questions. That's maybe indicative of the frustration that he's feeling, and the fact that they cannot push these runners over. I mean, you go out and you get a pitcher like Corbin Burns. You pay the price for basically a 1-year pitcher who in this situation, you hope he does what he did yesterday, which was deliver. He pitched 8 innings, gave up only 5 hits, 1 run. You really can't ask for much more than that, but it didn't happen for them. And the big guns, as in Gunnar, also not producing yesterday. He's in the leadoff spot, and he went 0 for 3 and struck out once. And he is also feeling the frustration of where they are right now.
At this point, it's pretty cookie cutter. You got to win or go home. So go out there and play your butt off and do whatever you can to win a game.
Runners in scoring position have been a position where your offense has struggled here the last 3 months. What needs to change between today and tomorrow to be able to come through this?
Just get up there and be a tough out, no matter if it's nobody on or bases loaded. Just get up there and be a tough out and try to make a mistake and don't miss it.
It's tough emotionally watching Corbin just throw magnificently but not get rewarded for it.
Yeah, I mean, he threw the ball really well today. We couldn't come through, but yeah, it's just how it goes sometimes.
When your starter has an outing like that, is there a sense amongst the lineup that you don't want to waste something like that?
I mean, yeah, you want to score runs, obviously. So, yeah, I mean, it's obviously not what we wanted to do is not putting up any runs, but just how it happened today. But like I said, we'll go out tomorrow and play our butts off.
Yeah, I mean, look, there's only so many things you can ask in a situation like that, and when you step back from it, it does look like a stupid question when you say, yeah, when your pitcher is pitching like that and you can't produce runs, do you feel like you're letting him down or whatever? Of course, your job is to produce runs, and they're not doing that, and that's got to be something that happens today, or season goes away for the second straight year, and for the second straight year, they don't win a playoff game. So this is key. Ryan O'Hearn had been playing a lot of first base. They got Ryan Mountcastle back, and he played first base yesterday, went 0 for 3, also struck out twice. They brought in O'Hearn as a pinch hitter, and he walked. At least he got on base, but he is also feeling the frustration of a team that's not producing runs.
I don't think you can, take this game and go, we're struggling again. Like, it's a playoff game. It's a whole different thing. Bottom line is you got to find a way to score runs. And, there's really good pitchers on the mound on both sides, and everyone's locked in on defense. And, it's hard to score runs in the postseason, and that's our job. So we just got to figure out a way to do that tomorrow. Eflin's. Has that been announced?
It has, yes.
Eflin's pitching, we feel, extremely confident with him, ball in his hands, and, ready to show up tomorrow and find a way to get a win.
Last time you saw the starting pitcher in Kansas City, today you singled him to death. Was his approach different today, or was your approach different?
I was watching. So, I wasn't in the box against Reagan's. I know our guys had a great plan going in, for whatever reason, we didn't put anything together. But I think the focus has to be on tomorrow, finding ways to score runs, play great defense, give Eflin the ball, let him do his thing, and survive another day.
Funny how he said, has that been announced? Like the players knew it, but it hadn't been announced. Now, there's the reason for the confusion on that is that they've had great success in the last couple of years closing things out with Dean Kramer. Dean Kramer pitched the clinching game last year when they won the division, also when they made the playoffs, and he did it again this year. Here's the Dean Kramer situation. He's Jewish. Tonight is Erev Rosh Hashanah. He could pitch until it hits, darkness and could be out on the mound. He's not starting. I guess he would be available in the bullpen today. He will not be available if the Orioles win this game. He will not be available for tomorrow because he has said that he will not pitch on Rosh Hashanah. The most famous incident in this, of course, was Sandy Koufax not pitching on Yom Kippur, which is considered the holiest day of the year. If they get to Yom Kippur, that means they got to keep winning in this series. So not having Dean Kramer available either out of the bullpen, and I don't know what the situation is today, if it, do or die situation, everybody's hands on deck, although Ben McDonald just told us he doesn't think they'll use starters if things slip up a little bit. But keep an eye on that situation if the Orioles win today and what they're going to do for a starting pitcher tomorrow. Last word from Corbin Burns, who did what he was brought to Baltimore to do, to pitch in a situation like this, and he did about as well as you possibly could do with 8 innings, giving up just 1 run. And here was his reaction after the game.
Yeah, it's win or go home. So I think this is a team that I'd be willing to run out there against anyone. So looking forward to going home, get some sleep, come back tomorrow, and watch these guys do their thing.
Corbin, there is a chance that this was your last start with the Orioles. If that's the case, how would you sum up your time here with this team this year?
I'm not thinking about that right now.
Yeah, he's going to cash in at the end of the year. Maybe the Baltimore Orioles re-sign him. Maybe he goes somewhere else. If the Orioles win this game today, it goes to a Game 3 tomorrow. And then they would go to New York for the weekend. They would start, if they win the next 2 games, they would play the Yankees in the playoff series starting this weekend. And it'll be a shame if they don't get there because they did have good success against the Yankees this year. And that would make for a heck of a series if they can manage to get there. But they've got to be able to produce with runners in scoring position. And they had only one really good performance at the plate yesterday. Cedric Mullins had 2 hits. Otherwise, just pretty much bupkis across the board. And they're going to need to produce when they have an opportunity to do that, which has been a problem throughout the second half of the season. I want to thank Ben McDonald for joining us today. Excellent job on ESPN. You'll see him again today with Sean McDonough and Jessica Mendoza as they do that game. That is a 4:30 start, not 4 o'clock like yesterday. And I want to thank Isaac Kuhn-Harris for running the show. Thanks to all of you who listened. Bram is coming up next, and I'll see you back here tomorrow at 9 a.m.